You've probably seen it. Footage of the Labour leader Keir Starmer being bundled into a police car as protesters shouted "traitor" and "Jimmy Savile" at him. Here's everything you need to know about those videos, exactly what happened right here in Westminster, and how the Prime Minister Boris Johnson fits in. This is the moment on Monday evening when Keir Starmer was mobbed by anti-COVID vaccine protesters outside Parliament, shouting "Jimmy Savile" and accusing him of protecting paedophiles. So what's Jimmy Savile got to do with this? Well, the BBC presenter was a prolific paedophile, but the details of his 6 decades of abuse only became widely known after his death. He was never brought to justice. Before Keir Starmer entered politics, he ran the Crown Prosecution Service and was in charge of bringing criminal prosecutions in England and Wales. That was at the same time Jimmy Savile's crimes came to light. The video of the Labour leader being mobbed came exactly 1 week after the Prime Minister accused Sir Keir of failing to prosecute Jimmy Savile during his time as Director of Public Prosecutions.
A former Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Speaker, he spent most of his time prosecuting journalists and failing to prosecute Jimmy Savile.
This is what Keir Starmer said in response.
It is a ridiculous slur peddled by right-wing trolls.
Other MPs from across the Commons criticised Mr Johnson's comments.
We're better than this. We must seek to improve our standards and not and rise above where we are today.
Even some of his own cabinet ministers have distanced themselves.
With regard to their comments, being honest, I wouldn't have said it.
And although the PM clarified his comments,
I totally understand that he had nothing to do personally with those decisions.
He has refused to apologise.
I was making a point about his responsibility for the organisation as a whole.
So is there any truth behind the claims? Fact-checkers have rejected the claim Keir Starmer failed to prosecute Jimmy Savile. There is no evidence he was involved in any of the charging decisions. But Sir Keir did apologise for his organisation's failure to bring the paedophile to justice. And the Labour leader has accused Boris Johnson of using fascist conspiracy theories to try and win political points.
Now their leader stands in the House of Commons parroting the conspiracy theories of violent fascists to try and score cheap political points.
One of the PM's own advisers has quit over these comments. Policy Chief Munira Mirza said it was desperately sad that Boris Johnson had made such a scurrilous accusation. She called it an inappropriate and partisan reference to a horrendous case of child sexual abuse. But Number 10 has doubled down on the PM's remarks. They insist that while Mr Johnson was not personally accusing Keir Starmer of failing to prosecute Savile, this was a question of leadership, and Sir Keir did lead the CPS. So what has the Prime Minister said about this new video? He has condemned the protesters' actions as absolutely disgraceful and said all forms of harassment of our elected representatives are completely unacceptable. But even though there is no evidence the protesters targeted the Labour leader because of the PM's comments, even the Speaker of the Commons has connected Mr Johnson's words with the actions of those protesters.
These sorts of comments only inflame opinions and generate disregard for the House, and it is not acceptable. Our words have consequences, and we should always be mindful of that fact.
So what does this mean for the Prime Minister, who's already had a rocky few weeks? Boris Johnson was trying to move on from the Partygate row, attempting to reset his government's agenda, but this fracas has only reignited the row over his character. He was already in a fragile position, and all this has only made it worse.